Can't see all the names, but we're doing good. All right, shall we get started, Elliot?
I'm still letting people in, but
All
yeah,
right.
right,
Just yeah, if anybody's still in the waiting room, let's let them in, and then we'll get going.
they're coming on in.
And I'm so glad you don't have the doorbell sound. That makes me happy.
Yeah, that thing drives me crazy too. All right, let me share my screen and then we will start. Also, don't be shy. Put your cameras on. We want this to be interactive. We want you to have questions. I see April. I see Corey. I see Patrick. I'm letting in Brian. Courtney, I see you. Don't be shy. Let's get your cameras on. See your beautiful faces. There we
Yeah,
go.
it makes not for nothing, folks. It makes for a better presentation. It's hard. It's hard speaking to walls.
Yeah,
Um,
Christopher does not want to speak to me. All right. So, can everybody see my screen here?
yes, they can.
All right, so I'm going to intro this and then Christopher is going to take it away and then I will take it back over at the end. So the question is how to become the CEO of your family law firm. And I thought who better than to present on this than Christopher, who is the CEO of his family law firm, and he has had tremendous success in doing this, right? So my name's Elliot. If you don't know who I am, I'm the co-founder of Empirical 360. So we work with family law firms across the nation. We help them scale through marketing, intake, and sales coaching. And then this is Christopher Anderson. He is the CEO of Sunnyside Services. He consults with law firms in addition to running one to help them achieve their goals. So with that, Christopher, do you want to add anything else to who you are? And then I'll roll into these slides.
Nah, we'll just go. Let's get going.
Good.
Let's just say everything I talk about. I've learned the hard way, mostly the hard way. And when I come up with some new crazy idea or introduce something that may sound like a crazy idea to you, one of the things that I commit to doing and have been is I try everything on myself first. So, and you can feel free to ask me, like, how did that go? What were the problems? Like, because one of the things, like, I always warn people, right? Don't ask the CEO of a law firm. Don't ask a law firm leader. Don't ask somebody who is somewhere you want to be, how they got there. You don't want to know. You want to know if they had to do it all over again, what they do different. And that's where I'll be talking from. I like the part of why I do what I do is I don't want people to have to fail forward quite as much as I have. Say that with all humility. It's just, it's been a humbling experience. But I think we've learned a few things. So what are we going to learn today? So the topic one more time is how to become, not how to be, how to become the CEO of your family law firm. And so we'll talk about that by understanding what the decision is that you may have made, or what I guess which CEO decision you've actually made, one of which might be not being one, and that's okay. We're going to talk about that. Like I don't want to suggest that that is the only path to being a successful law firm owner. It is not. You can be a very, very successful law firm owner without being the CEO of the firm. Um, Two, we're going to talk about how to build a plan as the CEO, if that's the decision you've made, and what the next steps are. So that's what we're going to get through today. We're going to leave we're going to leave some time for Q&A. It almost never feels like it's plenty, but we'll also give you ways to get in touch with us should you have more that you want to review. So let's take the next slide, Mr. Slide Controller. Thank you. So the first thing I wanted to review with everybody, and because this is where I think quite honestly, most people facing this decision, facing this conversation, where it ends, because they either don't want to do this, answer this question, or no one's ever asked them to. And so they didn't know that they needed to face this question. So we're going to face it all together right here, right now. Thank you for showing up. The fact that you have shown up, the fact that you are here, even though most of you are not on screen, please, please, please come on screen. Um, the fact that you are here means that you have decided to answer the question of how to become the CEO of your family law firm. Um, but that doesn't mean that you've decided to become the CEO of your family law firm because again, nobody teaches us stuff in law school. And the fact that we are the owners of the family law firm, the fact that we're leaders in a family law firm, doesn't mean we're the CEO. Doesn't make us the CEO. Doesn't mean that we want to be the CEO. Doesn't mean we have the skill to be the CEO. Doesn't mean we have the desire to be the CEO. And doesn't mean that you should be. And that's, I think, or that you have to be. That's the thing that I think most people aren't given the freedom to decide. You don't have to be the CEO to be a successful family law firm owner. However, at above a certain size, and it depends on your firm how you do business. So don't like to give hard numbers, but somewhere between $2.5 and $4 million, let's say, of gross revenue. At some point in there, your family law firm needs a CEO. Yes, it just doesn't have to be you. If what makes your work, what makes you tick, is practicing, being a really damn good lawyer, and the CEO stuff and the running the business is not it, that's okay. Then we just help you, and this webinar will help you understand what you expect out of that CEO. But you hire one, right? You get a CEO on board because nothing about going to law school and preparing to be a lawyer prepared you to be a CEO or even suggest in any way that that's who you want to be. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine. You can grow a I mean, I can name you super successful family law firms that where the owner is not the CEO. But if growing the business is what really like puts the sugar in your tea, I'm trying to come up with as many euphemisms as I can. Then you be the CEO, but then realize that as the firm grows, that job grows. And your opportunity to continue to be the best damn lawyer in the room and to really be on top of your lawyer game and to be, to be a great family lawyer, those opportunities will begin to diminish. You can still lead the team. You can be the leader of the legal team, but more and more of your time, attention, energy will be spent in learning how to be a good CEO and being a good CEO to your business. So that's the first one is decide right here, right now. It's not an irrevocable decision. You can think about it, but like, what's your gut telling you? Are you the CEO or are you about to learn what you need to know about the attributes of a good CEO?
Put it in
On
chat.
the
If you're a CEO, put CEO in chat. If you're undecided, put that in chat. Get some decisions made here.
There you go. And while they're doing that, let's go on. Let's move along. All right. This is more to what I was just talking about, but I think it's important to see this Venn diagram and to think about it this way, right? You can be the owner of a family law firm without being the CEO. You could be the CEO of a family law firm without being the owner, and you can be both for a time. But again, as that firm grows, you're going to end up leaning one way or the other. I love Dina's answer, aspiring CEO who's stuck in casework. And so I think Dina's going to have to, and everybody who's that's the honest answer, has to ask themselves what that means and why. Because with all respect to anybody who's answering that, no, you're not. You're choosing to be. And so the question that you have to ask yourself is how is that serving you? How is it serving you to be stuck in casework? Why are you still stuck in casework? Because you would not be if it was not serving you in some way. And most of us, because we're lawyers, the answer to that is the way that it's serving us is that nobody can do some of this work as well as I can. The full on confidence that you're doing the best and nobody else will care about it enough. Put the energy into it, put yourself on the line to be as skilled, da da da, all those things. But let me ask you something. Who's gonna be the best at and put all the energy in and love being a CEO as much as you? And the answer to that is if you don't want to be the CEO, well, then the answer to that is someone else. But if you really want to be the CEO, then you are facing the same question on that side too. And I promise you this, you can bring your business far more value in the CEO chair than you ever will in the lawyer chair. Because the lawyer, it's a by definition limited role. Um, with exceptions, which we can go over, but this isn't the how to become a great lawyer webinar. So we're not I won't spend too much time on that, but there are ways to, actually bring a lot of value to your firm there too. But for the most part, it's more limited, but it is what you choose and what gives you joy. That's the most important question. Slide, please. Thank you. So in order to do this, there are three decisions that build one on the other. And the unfortunate truth is most people talk to you about decision one only in building a business plan, building a success plan for your law firm, building a plan for you and how to become a CEO. They start and end with the question, how much money do you need to take out of the business in order to live the life that you want to live? And honestly, if you're at $100,000 in revenue or $300,000 in revenue or $700,000 in revenue, that might be the only question you need to ask for right now. But it isn't the only question you need to ask going forward. It is an extremely limiting question because, as human beings, the answer to this question is relatively limiting, right? I think there was recently a study done on what level of income improves happiness. Now, this thing's a few years old, only a few, but at the time the answer was $75,000. People reached peak happy at $75,000 of take-home income. There was no incremental improvement in happiness after that number. So let's update it for today. Let's say it's $125,000. I think it's probably less. Which then begs the question, okay, so why more? Well, some of us, want more, and that's good. But you certainly reach a point at some point of take home at $1 million take home, $5 million take home, $10 million take home. At some point, you've reached peak happy. Richard Branson, not Richard Branson, Richard Branson, sorry. Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs is dead, so he doesn't care anymore. Bill Gates, the other leaders of less prestigious businesses that are, the billionaires and people that are taking home more than $1 billion. An incremental another 50 million, $100 million is not improving their life in any meaningful way. They left behind the impact that bringing home more money would have on them. So they left behind what impact that would have on the business. It's a fine place to start. And I like to think about it kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You gotta breathe, you gotta eat, you gotta have water. Um, that's money, right? You have to get the physiological and the safety first. And so if you're not there yet, I think most of the people on this call are close or beyond that. But if you're not there yet, yes, this is the one metric. And it's the metric you always have to decide. But it'll be more informed by the other metrics as we go forward. But how much money should the business pay you? That's a decision we've got to make. Then, once we're getting close to that, or before, it's okay to think about this one, by the way, from the very beginning. Understanding how much time you're willing to give that business, or how much time do you want back to put into things in your life that give you joy, is another decision. A lot of you on this call, from my understanding of how you came to the call and previous conversations that you've had, are in the place where, yeah, you're doing okay financially, but your life really sucks. You are burnt out, putting way too much time into the business. You are a slave to the business, and you have not clearly defined. Well, the reason for that is you have not clearly defined and then built a plan for how much of that you want back. How much of the law firm, how much of your time should the law firm be allowing you to spend on the things in your life that give you joy, which, by the way, can, for me, definitely does include thinking strategically and about the business, building on the business, thinking proactively about the business. That's just one of the things that gives me joy. But you need the time to be able to do that. And this is the point where you also have to, the reason that you build a plan here is if you do not, then you trade decision two for decision one. You allow the firm to eat your time to produce more money. And that is a fool's bargain. One of my favorite quotes in the whole wide world comes from Journey to Ixtlan. I never know how to pronounce that word, Ixtlan, by Carlos Castanedas, which is the only problem with you is that you think you have plenty of time. We do not. You do not. I do not. None of us does. Depending on what religion or philosophical or worldview you have, either your date is written or it's not. But the one thing we all know is it's finite. So time we have in finite amounts. It's every day a little bit less. How dare we trade that for something so abundantly available as money? We have to define number two. Not at first. It's okay to not do it at first, but it definitely needs to be defined. And that will affect our plan because the more time we want from the business is the less things we can do for the business, which means we need other people to do them and we need money to pay them. And if we need some money to pay them, the business plan is going to look different than if we did all those things. If we're stuck in casework and we need someone else to do that casework, well, we're going to have to pay them. And so the business is going to have to generate a little bit more profit to pay them. And I say a little bit because it's a little bit compared to what it's going to give to you. And then decision number three. And this is what defines, really successful businesses. One and two, I learned a phrase when I worked at LexisNexis. We were acquiring businesses that were developing software. And I learned the term among the M&A team of lifestyle business. I didn't know what it meant before that, but that's what it means. It means a business that has grown into the owner's definition of what they want out of it in time, what they want out of it in money, and devoid of purpose. Purpose is what brings a business from those limiting characteristics, because each one of those is a finite decision, to one that grows much, much bigger, where what the business provides to you, at least in money and can be in time, begins to be a byproduct, a enjoyable perhaps byproduct of what the business's purpose is. When Bill Gates had the purpose of putting a computer on every desktop in America or in the world, that created a business that provided him with far more financial resources and, quite honestly, far more time than he ever needed to be happy, than he ever wanted. And, made, I think, some great decisions with that, to form a foundation and use the money in that way because it wasn't for a lifestyle. But what was driving that business was the purpose. What's yours? What are you building really? And that brings us to, the highest levels of Maslow's hierarchy, right? That fulfills esteem, that fulfills self-actualization. We do not need to make this decision today to form a plan to be a CEO. But if you want a world-changing business, we need to talk about number three as well. All right. So those are the three decisions that we need to make to build one on the other slide. And again, I didn't use the slides. So we'll just reiterate them really quickly. Right. So how much does this business need to bring home? This is, by the way, this is the one that if you're under $2 to $3 million, I don't think I said in revenue, $3 million in revenue, it's okay if it's the only decision you've made for now. But this will be the most limiting decision. Then the time is this will expand your thinking on the business immensely and goes into the plan and is easier to execute once you've decided how much of that time you need. And then finally, purpose, which I think I talked about, and the money and the time become byproducts. All right. So before we build the plan, then we need to answer the questions. We need numbers, right? Because a business plan at the end of the day is numbers. It involves numbers. It also can have feelings. There's one exercise I love to run with my clients called Be Do Have. But you know what, and actually it's be I've evolved it. It's be do have feel. So in the next 5 years, excuse me, in the next 5 years, who do you want to be? What do you want to have done or be doing? What do you want to have acquired? And how do you want to feel? So, but in the numbers here, we ask how much should the business produce this year in order to reach your target? How much should you take home as total owner benefit? That includes the salary it pays you, the profit that gets distributed to you, and anything the business pays for that if you had a job, you'd have to pay for yourself. And where are you now? Where are we starting? We got to know where we're starting. All right. And then if we move on to decision two, we also need to know how much time we need the business to give us back, right? I decide it that way, not how much time will I work inside the business, rather how much time do I need in order to do the things that give me joy and also to take care of myself. And then what's left, the business gets, right? That's a better way of thinking about it. What is that target? And again, where are we with that today? Those are the numbers we need to know. You may not know all of them right here, right now, and that's okay. This is intended to be an ongoing conversation. This is intended to be a conversation you revisit regularly and adjust the plan accordingly as you learn more about yourself, as you learn more about your business. And then the changing the world, the big one. And that doesn't really fit into a 3 number grid. That, my friends, is a conversation that is yours and yours alone. I can't tell you. Elliot can't tell you. You can't tell each other what that burning passion is. You may not know, but we have a way of discovering it with you, and making it feel real to you so that it can drive your business beyond any of the first two things, beyond your anything you've ever imagined. All right. So then, once we understand those numbers, then and only then can we start to plan. First and foremost, we then build the sales plan. Acquiring clients gotta come first. Everything else is a byproduct of it. If we can't do this, we can't do the rest. I guess we can get all the time back, but it's not the business that'll be providing it. It'll be the lack of business that'll be providing that. And then, unfortunately, the other people will want that time. Either the job that you have to go get, or if you decide to, acquire things in less desirable ways, the state might desire your time. But one or the other, we have to build the sales plan first. We've got to acquire it. So we need to understand the revenue that we need to hit our target, numbers that we'll need to understand to put into there. We need to know our average case value. How many cases will be closing during that time. A lot of people skip that one. Really important. How many, if we're acquiring this many cases, how many cases are we finishing? What's it costing us per lead? What's it costing us to actually acquire a client all the way? What's that conversion rate all the way through? We need to know that, what it's been, and then what we believe we can move it to, but it has to be a realistic number. If you tell me you're going to double your lead to client conversion rate, we have to have a story behind that. We need to understand exactly, you need to understand exactly how you're going to do that. And then how many salespeople, new client specialists, client concierges, whatever you call them, do you need in order to be able to convert that many leads to clients in your system the way that you've built it? But acquisition indeed comes first, and then we can build the rest. Well, what's the rest? And again, this is where a lot of businesses fall down. They're like, hey, yeah, we'll build a sales plan and we'll get all these new clients. And won't that be great? So much revenue. We also need to plan how we deliver on the promises that you've made. Um, if you've ever listened to the Unbillable Hour podcast, you know we start every episode talking about that, right? We got to acquire new clients. We've got to deliver on the promises we made to those new clients. So, what do we need to know about that? We need to know on average how many hours go into a case, how many attorney hours, how many paralegal hours, how many legal assistant hours, on average, do we need in order to produce a case in our business? When we send out bills, what percent of those billables are collected? How many lawyers and paralegals are required in order to produce those number of hours per case? Number four, really important. What will you be contributing to those hours? Zero or some number above zero? Will that stay steady? Will it grow? Will it reduce? We need to know that. We need to understand the true capacity per attorney. That kind of feeds into number three, but it's an important question to fully build out the plan. And of course, we need to know the fully loaded cost per person. When you put a new person in your business, a new lawyer, a new I think I swallowed a fly. A new lawyer, a new paralegal, into your business, what does it actually cost to have them there? Not just their salary, not just the markup on their salary for benefits and taxes, but if they're live in the office, what does that space cost you fully loaded? What is the software that they need to use cost you? What is the support that they need cost you? What is the recruiting for that person cost you? We need to know that fully loaded cost per person. And then finally, we do need to know time on desk. On average, how long after you begin a case is that time active in your firm before it gets closed? This is all the numbers. These are all the numbers that you need to know in order to build your production plan, which also then becomes your hiring plan. Nothing is more important, there we go, than understanding your hiring plan so that you can get ahead of it. It is the downfall of many growing law firms that they begin the hiring process when everybody's slammed. And then they wonder why they lose attorneys to burnout, lose themselves to burnout, because they wait for everybody to be slammed before they start the hiring process. And or they wonder why they hire the first warm body that can fog a mirror that shows up rather than waiting for the ideal candidate. Well, that all comes from a hiring plan. So you start that process, a good 90 to 120 days before you need that body in the chair, no matter what the role, because then you can be picky, then you can recruit, then you can make decisions on that recruiting. If you're not getting the kind of candidates that you want, you can expand it. You can lean into other resources and do all sorts of things when you've got time that you cannot do when you're hiring on need, not on plan. All right. Thanks, Elliot. Sorry about that. And then finally, underneath all of that, all right, so that's the production plan for people. What's the production plan for everything else? We need to understand for our business plan so that we land at the profitability we want and the that total owner benefit. What do we need to support this team? Do we need practice management software, case management software? Do we, yes, need a CRM in order to manage sales and marketing? And by the way, also to manage the recruiting, which is also sales and marketing. Do we need office space? The answer almost always at one of these numbers is yes. So the question really becomes how much? Are we going to be fully remote or just have a small production staff in a smaller office space, or are we going to be bringing everybody in or somewhere in between? Four, what kind of support staff are we going to build and how are we going to grow that? The cool thing is that the support staff does not grow at the same pace as the rest of the team. You get to grow that part of your team more slowly, in part because they can support more people. As they, a $1 million firm needs one bookkeeper, a $7 million firm needs one bookkeeper, right? Things don't scale with the revenues. Um, what and as you grow, you also can hire different skill set combinations so that you can replace a bookkeeper that served you until you were 1 million with a bookkeeper that knows how to support a firm of 7 million or 10 million. And it's still one person, but it's a person with more experience, more capability, more d d d more demonstrated, that's the word I'm looking for, ability to lead a firm into that new space. Same for controllers, same for CFOs, same for HR, same for operations manager, and all these other support staff. You don't have to grow them as fast as you grow your team, which is good because that means that as you scale, the overhead tends to shrink as a percentage of your total spend, which is a nice thing. I'll warn you, at first it's not true. So as you first start to actually not do all these things yourself, these numbers tend to increase. And sometimes I remember during the first few years as we were going through this, like I continually was shocked by how many people were needed to do the job that was part of my job. And then all of a sudden we got three full-time employees doing the thing that was like 10% of my job. And you'll run into that too, but then it peaks and then it starts to slide back down as a percent of spend. And then, of course, you need to make the decision based on revenue metrics and your business complexity metrics about when you'll need that controller, when you'll need to upgrade to a CFO, when you'll need to get a COO, when you'll need to get a full-time HR person, when you'll need to get metrics and analytics in-house, when you'll need IT, et cetera, et cetera. But it all is predictable and it can be and should be part of your plan. So we take all these pieces and then we can move to the next slide and we build a month by month plan that is driven, and you'll see where we started this, right? Driven by what you want under those three metrics. What you want to bring home, what you want in times and not burning out, and what you want to change the world. And by the world, by the way, and it said it on the slide, I mean your world. When we say I want the business to change the world, what I mean is whatever little piece of the world that's important to you. It doesn't have to be the capital W world. Can be, but it doesn't have to be. A lot of people have chosen a very niche world to change and become very successful in doing it. Then, well, sorry, stay on that slide. So then we develop, the metrics that we need to cover it, the target new cases, the leads needed, how many consultations we can handle, the active versus the closed cases, making sure that, because otherwise, if you don't pay attention to closed cases, by the way, what will happen is you'll build this and suddenly you'll be closing as many cases as you're opening and you'll level out. It's got to keep evolving that plan. So the plan's got to be month by month to keep that going. When to hire. And finally, but not last, is profit margin. We need to be designing that all the way through to make sure that we have a plan for what that's going to be so we understand it. As you're growing a firm, that profit margin is going to be wiggly. In the early years, it's going to dip into the red. Fair warning, if you want to grow aggressively. You can keep it from doing that by metering your growth to a certain level that won't let it dip into the red. Or you can grow faster. And one of my admonitions to my clients is then we make a plan to spend, to zoom through, to spend and do whatever we need to zoom through the red to where we're back into the profit land and then slow down and spend time there before we take the next roller coaster ride down and through. But we do that in a very intentional way so that we can keep the overall growth rate going without sacrificing too much profit. Now we can move. The other thing that, yeah, I wanted to definitely wanted to mention this because a lot of folks here, there's some folks here who have built and have their firm based primarily on referrals and word of mouth, which is great, by the way. And lots of folks who built their firms and have their firms based on more paid marketing, which is also fine. But we need to understand the difference. If we do it right, if we want to grow, let me rephrase that. If we want to grow, we know we have to turn to paid. Referrals are slow unless we want to grow at a slow rate, in which that's okay. There is a way to focus. I have a couple of clients who we are focused entirely on referral marketing. They know their growth rate is going to be slow, but that's okay with them. That's how they want to grow it. They want to just be focused on growing wealth. They're already at a position where they don't need to build the money so much anymore. They're really working on that third item of changing the world, and they are focusing on referrals. It's fine. That builds wealth. But just like in money, if you don't have wealth, it's hard to build wealth by building wealth. Okay? It just is. My grandmother always had a saying, which I don't like, but it's just, the rich get richer, right? But there's truth to it. Once you've got wealth, building wealth is easier. When you don't, you've got to get some money. And when you got to get some money, which is available in the universe in abundance, we all know, then we got to turn to paid marketing because that we can move like that. We can also turn it off like that. But we can in 93 to 4 months, 90 to 120 days, we can start leads through the funnel, booking calls, showing up, and then converting to clients. All that can happen in 90 to 120 days. Depending on what we spend, is what we can develop as money. And then we can, of course, turn many of those into referrals and start building the wealth, right? So just like, you need to get money in order to invest it, to start building your nest egg, to start building wealth. In the same way with marketing and with acquiring new clients, we got to start getting the clients to build the referrals to get the wealth. It's not the only way. It is the faster way. And depending on what your goals are and how fast you want to grow will determine how much you lean into the paid marketing side. I've represented a number of clients, who started at a fairly modest number, and when we grew them, we leaned really hard into paid, and then as a percentage of revenue, we started backing that off as the wealth started to take over, and started to deliver more clients at a much lower cost of acquisition, but not zero. Because if you don't nurture that referral network, the sources of these referral clients, they will dry up. They will wither away and die or go to someone else who's better about nurturing them. So you got to spend there too. And you got to spend on acquiring new referral sources because they all die eventually. So I just wanted to kind of plug that in because that very much feeds into our decisions on the plan that we're going to build. So that brings us here. We have developed a way to think about this way faster and to build a plan way better than you may have been exposed to before with our friends of the machines. Can we go back to that? Sorry. Our friends, the machines. There we go. Have helped us to build this, and to now make it available for you. We believe, and so Elliot's going to walk us through how this works live and in front of you. So everybody cross their fingers. Um, but we believe that this is best as a guided tour, because there's so many questions, the answers to which a lot of lawyers that are building their businesses trip over, that we want to do this with you. And so here we go.
All right. So, what I'm going to show you, and then I'll drop my link in here for any of you who want to do this guided tour that Christopher's talking about. Because what we want to leave here once I show you what this looks like is time to ask questions so you can gather your numbers so our guided tour is worth your time. Otherwise, we'll just be guessing on this thing. So here is the dashboard that we've built, right? And what it's going to do is you're going to start with your profit target, and you're going to start with your current revenue, staff counts, paralegal counts, salespeople. And then you're going to put in there your profit margin as it is now, or maybe as you want it to be, right? And it's going to calculate the additional revenue that you need to make in your 12-month plan. Everyone follow me so far? Questions? All right. So this is the starting point of the plan. As we go back to the presentation that Christopher said, we got to start with level one. How much money do we want to make? Now, next, we're going to go into the acquisition plan, which is the next step that we talked about. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug in these numbers, right? The same numbers on the slides, case value, cost per lead, your funnel conversion rates. Now, if you don't know these, we can help fill in the gaps on these per state that you're in, because we work in just about every state. And I know what these numbers can be and should be. And so we can make some assumptions. If you have a salesperson, we can plug in their capacity, their on target earnings, and then intake if you have an intake company or intake staff. Right? What this is going to do is it's going to put these numbers out for you. So, what does your year need to look like? Now, that is then going to feed into your production plan. So, how many billable hours can an attorney do per month? How many billable hours does a paralegal do? What is your time on desk? What is your average time to completion? And then the hourly rates and your compensation for your actual role in the firm, not your profit. With me so far, I'll send out a list of this stuff. If you're going to book a call, you're going to get homework. Don't worry. Next is going to be your infrastructure plan. So what does it cost? Like, what does the plant cost? So what are you paying in software? What are you paying in office space? What are you paying in bookkeeping? And if we have to add lines here, we can add lines, right? So this is dynamic. And then we'll fill in the values, and that'll calculate a monthly total for your infrastructure and a percentage of revenue. Now, what will happen is you're going to have a plan summary at the end, and you'll have an export of this when we do our call. And it's going to tell you these different numbers. So what percentage is your sales and marketing? What percentage is your profit? What percentage is your infrastructure and your production? But more importantly, what it's going to give you is it's going to give you a monthly snapshot of what each month should look like. Now, again, some months, unfortunately, I got bad news. You might not hit your metrics, but we can course correct, right? So how many sales do you need? How many leads? How many active cases are you balancing? From that, how many attorneys do you need in what month? And then it'll calculate your revenues and your profits, right? So all of this seems very complicated. You're going to need like 12 numbers-ish, 15 numbers to actually plug it in. But the goal is to leave with an actual plan of these are the months that I would need to hire. This is how I ramp to my goal. And now it's not so mysterious to actually scale yourself out of the day-to-day if that's your goal, or keep yourself in, depending on your goal. So with that, we have about 15 minutes. I want to open it up for Q&A so that if you book a call, I'll drop my link here in a second. If you book a call, you are clear on what you need to get or how to go get it. So questions, open it up. If you want to raise your hand or put the little icon in Zoom up, you can address either Christopher or I, and we will answer your questions. And I'm going to drop my link in chat for you guys if you guys want to run through this. It'll take us about 30 minutes to go through it. Plug your numbers in. I'll give you an export of an Excel sheet so you have all this stuff for yourself. And then from there, you have your plan. So let it rip. There's got to be questions. I have questions. I'm putting this, my link.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So One of the biggest, my wife and I have had a law firm together for 4 years now. So I just retired from the fire department. I was a captain. So now I've come over here managing and running a law firm. So I'm not an attorney, but um, we're doing pretty good, I think. One of the biggest issues we've had is attrition and finding the right people to put on the bus, so to speak. um and so you weed through a lot to get. Now we have a pretty good team and we have another good one coming on board, but my planning for attrition, and I think you kind of hit on the head, Chris. Preparing and having, I guess, where do you find that sweet spot of having the right number of personnel, where if you have, I don't know, let's say 100 cases and you have two attorneys and then one of the attorneys leaves and now you have 100 cases for one attorney, what's a contingency plan look like for that? Or same with the paralegals. If you have three trained up paralegals, and then one leaves and now you have 50 cases each or whatever the numbers are, what is the best way to plan for something like that? I mean, in your experience, because that's one of the harder things we're juggling right now is the support staff and, well, the main players, the paralegals and the attorneys.
So you're, what's the size of your team right now? How many lawyers?
My wife is the only attorney.
Got it. And how many paralegals?
We have two. We're bringing a third on, but she's actually uh, an attorney in Oregon. She's coming on as a paralegal here, but she'll probably take the Florida bar. She's a whiz kid, so that's the plan.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Well, so I mean, Patrick, this is the white knuckle part, right?
yeah.
You are there. The goal here is to get out of here as quickly as possible. And one of the things, that again, how I would do this differently. Um, in the early days, uh, it is more important to get a little over your skis with hiring than it is in the later days. And that's one of the reasons that profitability can go up after you reach a certain point because you putting when you have the firm at risk of your wife getting the flu, um, or needing to attend to a loved one, or whatever, and then when you have two lawyers, you're not in much better shape. Um, and so you want to get to where you're maybe running the firm at 80% capacity, 70% capacity, for a little while. So you have excess capacity for when something should happen. The cool thing is once you've got about six lawyers total, you can start to shift that math to where you're willing to run it to 100%, 103% capacity. Because 103% capacity means that when you bring on a lawyer and you bring everybody down to 85% capacity, you've taken six lawyers times 18%, right? Which is what you just gave up out of six lawyers. And you've got the new lawyer fully booked and producing. We don't have this hit. And if your profitability is better than 15%, we actually will stay profitable. And so you're no longer on that roller coaster. Now the firm is de-risked a little. You can actually run it hot. But when you're in the danger zone of having one, two, three lawyers, you got to run it a little bit cool, sacrifice profit a little bit to mitigate risk. And so that's one of the things that changes, as you get to grow the firm, and why it's so important to escape the one, two lawyer range and get into that five, six lawyer range as quickly as possible. If growth is what you want. If growth is not what you want, there are different strategies. If you say, I just want to be I got a couple clients. I just want to be a boutique firm. I want every lawyer billing $1 million, and I want to be a boutique firm, and I just want three lawyers total. Then I have different strategies for um, de-risking the firm. So it just also depends on whether your goal is growth or um, status being static. But I think I've answered your question. I hope I have. Just you can tell me if I have or not.
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool. Thank you, Patrick.
Other questions? You can type them in chat if you're feeling shy.
You guys gonna let Patrick show you up?
Here comes Adam.
There we go.
Hi, Chris. Great to meet you. The
You as well.
one of the things we're struggling
But
with
let's
is
just do this since we're just meeting, and,
sure.
and I let it slide with Patrick. But now I'm not gonna. It's Christopher. There we go. Now we're done.
Thank you, Christopher. Great to meet
Not at
you.
all.
Actually, let me move the camera so you can see me better. I
There
can
we
see
go.
you better. There we go. Um, one of the things, actually, I'm still on the wrong camera. One of the things we're struggling with is figuring out where we should be allocating work between a fully loaded attorney and fully loaded paralegal or legal assistant. So we have two pods looking to add a third quickly, and we're an long-standing firm that's trying to claw our way to profitability. So we're trying to figure out. We went from very little legal para or LA billing to now we got them billing about 100,000, and we're trying to increase that to meet rising labor. So we're trying to. So what are some ways to think about or analyze where your LAs should be, where your attorneys should be, production wise?
I'm not sure I'm clear on the question. Like obviously we want everybody fully booked. A paralegal should be generating above $250,000 in revenue. Um, right? I mean, there's no reason for them to be at 100,000 unless they're doing things that aren't billable, in which case you should probably hire somebody that costs less than a paralegal to do that. And it used to be a firing offense in my firm. We don't even use copiers anymore, but when we did, it used to be a firing offense to find a paralegal standing at a photocopier waiting, particularly if they were waiting, but waiting on the copier to finish or whatever. It's like, that's not a paralegal's job, right? So we have to get them focused on doing the work that is the highest and best use of their time. If your question was which one do I fully load first, I don't like that question, to be honest, because what you'll be doing is training the firm to be inefficient. If we all know that the actual answer is you have to fully load the attorney first, because the attorney at the end of the day can do some paralegal work if they have to, right? So you get the attorney busy because you can offset some of the attorney time. The paralegals you need to fully load and keep them working. But really, I think in building my businesses, to be honest, Adam, I think of that as a unit, an attorney and a paralegal, or actually the way I've built it is two attorneys and two paralegals are a unit, and we load them equally and we load them fast. And as fast as we can. So when I talked earlier about rushing through the deficit periods and slowing down at the peaks, I mean it. So right when we're getting ready for growth, I call I call Empirical, I call in everybody, and we turn the marketing up to full blast. I make sure I have plenty of salespeople on hand, and we run through that period where I've got unloaded people and get that caseload coming up really fast. Then when I've got people, this is when I'm at the 3-4 lawyer stage, where we're going to hit those deficits, 2-3-4 lawyer stage. Then when everybody's full, I slow down. I actually, I don't increase the marketing, and we take a breath and we make sure all the systems are working. The work is flowing through the business in a smooth way. We check what our constraints are and where those bottlenecks are, and we try to kill a few of them. And then, we do that for a few months while we get ready for the next push. And then we push again through. But so the goal, quite honestly, Adam, is to keep people as fully loaded as possible and to run through the periods where they're not. Now, once you're at 10 lawyers, 12 lawyers, when you add a lawyer, you're only removing 10% capacity from everybody else. You no longer have this problem, right? You can keep things going steady. You don't have to rush through and slow down and rush through and slow down. You just grow steady state because you're varying the team between 85 and 95% capacity, never getting really much above or below that. And you can grow nice and gentle. But until then, you just got to load them up fast and then slow down, load them up fast and then slow down. Does that answer what you're asking?
Close enough.
Okay.
It's
If you
it's I think we're trying to assess if our pods are productive enough.
Yeah, well, at 100,000 revenue, they're not.
So the legal assistant slash para is producing 100, the attorney's producing about 500,000, and
Yeah,
we're
so
looking at
so the
labor
answer is
costs.
no on both. What state are you in?
Illinois,
Okay. What like Chicagoland or
north,
Southern?
2 counties north of Chicago,
Okay.
McHenry and Lake County.
Yeah. So no, you're not. But you said paralegal slash LA, and so that kind of screws up my numbers a little bit. So, are they paralegals or are they legal assistants?
They
because I expect different revenues out of each by dramatic numbers.
so they are LAs. They're very experienced LAs, so they're in that
Yeah.
they can.
So then 100's still low, but probably not quite 250,000 as a target, depending on that. But like, I think one of the things you want to focus on is not get people in that no man's land. If your plan is to train them up to be full blown paralegals, great, more power. I love that. But let's not keep people in that limbo land. We need legal assistants. We need paralegals. Those are different jobs, and to keep people in the middle is a disservice to the business and to them. So either train them up to be a paralegal or let them go somewhere else. And get legal assistants who you can pay $25 an hour, and get paralegals who you pay whatever paralegals command in your market, and let them do their distinct jobs. Legal assistants are allowed to stand at the copier because somebody's got to.
Gotcha. Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? If there's no other questions, last call, I dropped my link in there if you guys want to run through the sales plan. So idea is run through sales plan. That might create more questions for myself or Christopher. And then you can have those calls as you go. But it's a pretty in-depth plan. So if you're into it, it'll take us like half an hour. And I'll send a recap email with the link of the data points that you need. Again, they're not necessarily always easy to gather. So like if we ask for an average, it's a single number, not a range. And all of these things have distinct numbers. Any other questions before we break? Don't be shy.
All right.
All right. Well, easy enough. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you all.
We'll see you on the next one.